Sure.
Hello. How,
Hi.
how's it going?
Good. Welcome,
Good.
welcome.
See, you're all good, and I'm just doing a little chore, making sure everyone's computer is collaborating. Had some technical issues earlier, but I'm fantastic. It looks like already a bunch of people are here, which is wonderful.
That's
Cool. Well,
great.
I'll let you get started, and I'll talk to you later.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, it is 3 o'clock on the dot. Is that our starting time, Kyle?
It is.
Okay. Well, I guess welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along today. My name is Helen Arns, she, her. I'm a Senior Merchant Success Manager here at Shopify, and I'm supporting Kyle today, who's going to be leading the majority of the workshop today.
Hey, everybody. I'm Kyle, he, him. I'm a technical facilitator at Shopify. So my job is to help new hires onboard into R&D at Shopify. So within R&D, that would include anybody who is in the data organization, development, product, and user experience. I primarily work with new developers to help them understand our culture, how we work together, and our tech stack at Shopify. So this workshop we've called Will I Thrive Here? And the goal of the workshop is to provide you with some tools through the form of questions to use during an interview to determine if a company is a good fit for you. You dedicate a huge part of your life to your job. So it's essential that you love your work, the culture, and the people you work with, at least most of the time. So,
I mean, you spend most of your waking hours at work, so you should love what you do.
Completely. And every place is going to have its ups and downs, but you really want to be in a place that you love for sure. All right. So we are going to try and make this as interactive as possible and also have some takeaways from it so that you have something after. You're not just listening to me speak. You'll have some things to take away from this session, hopefully. So we're going to start here and take a minute to answer this question. What's important to you? Obviously, that's a very broad and general question, but we're going to think about it from a work standpoint and the things that you need. So I want you to make a list in your head or on a piece of paper in a doc. And once you determine what qualities are important to you, we're going to build questions geared towards understanding if those qualities exist at a particular company. So think of the things that are important to you, and then what we're going to do is we'll each post one of those things in the chat here. So I'll give you a minute to do that.
And maybe Kyle would be good to give one example of what this could look like.
All right. So,
like, what is important to you, Kyle?
Something that's really important to me is enjoying. I really like working with good people. Like people, I want to be working with people that I want to spend time with. That's one big thing for sure.
That's a good example.
What about you, Helen?
I know, as I asked that question, I was like, what is that? Lots of things. My first thought was people. I want to work with vibrant, smart, caring people.
So here's
almost like I can.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's almost like I can hear people furiously writing down what's important to them.
It's good. So if you just joined, I see a few people coming in. What we're doing is we're thinking about things that are important to you, and then what you can do is type it in the chat, but then maybe don't push enter. And what we'll do is we'll all push enter together. So I'll give you maybe another 30 seconds or so to type one thing in the chat, and then I'll do a countdown and we'll all hit enter at the same time. All right. So I'm going to do a countdown from 5, and then we'll see how we're doing here. Hopefully. Oh, all right. Oh, hang on, Reed. Don't wait.
Oh, Reed's the trailblazer. We love
Nice.
trailblazers.
That's awesome. All right. We're going to get a cheap visual effect from this as well. It's going to be a bit of a waterfall effect if we all do it at the same time. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Awesome.
Ooh. Such good ones.
All right, so take a moment, scroll back, and read through what other people's responses are.
Mm. I feel like people is a big theme. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your people, your team, how your people operate. Yeah, I think it's really good.
I've heard an expression that people don't leave companies; they leave managers. I don't know.
Yeah, people don't leave; they leave bad managers. Yeah, it's an expression.
All right, these are great. So hopefully, in this session, we'll touch on these a little bit, and we'll come back to them as well. I think there'll be an opportunity to revisit some of these as well, which is great. Okay, so let me just, in preparing for this workshop, I had to kind of come up with some qualities, just kind of guessing some things. And so I came up with 3 qualities that might be important to you. And we're going to use these qualities as the basis for this workshop. So there's 3 I came up with as a high trust workplace, an inclusive environment, and opportunities to solve difficult and high impact technical challenges. So how we're going to approach these. So here's how the workshop, whoop, a little lag there. All right, so here's how the workshop's going to proceed. For each of these qualities, I will provide a potential question that could be asked. And then I'll then provide examples of what these qualities look like at Shopify. So I'm going to pretend that I'm getting the question asked to me, and then I'll answer it from a Shopify perspective. And as I mentioned, workshops are always better if you get something tangible out of them. So rather than just listening to me speak, I much prefer to be stage left anyway. For this workshop, what we're going to do is we're going to build a document together with our list of questions. And at the end, you can feel free to add the qualities that you just listed in the chat and build out questions for those as well. And then this document will then be a great resource for everyone as they start an interview process. All right, so I'm going to just grab the document for you. And all right, I'm posting it in the chat. Everyone should have access to this. You can open it up, and we'll all contribute to it together. So I love about Google Docs, and you get all these anonymous elephants and wombats as people join.
You forgot the anonymous ferret. That's my favorite.
That's a good one. All right. So now that everyone's in, it'll become clear as we move forward, but let's start with the first quality, the high trust. So how can you discern whether high trust exists at a company through technical questions? And so for all these qualities, I'm going to approach them from a developer perspective. So like, what does high trust look like from a developer perspective, and what technical questions can provide insight into the degree of trust a company provides to their employees? So here is the first one. You'll see this question as well in the Google Doc that I shared with you. So what is the process of writing and deploying code? So this sounds like a pretty standard question on the surface, maybe even a little boring, but it can give you a lot of insight into the ownership and agency you might have within an organization. So let me show you how I would answer this about Shopify. So in the Shopify response, we would likely speak about the fact that, there'd be some kind of standard pieces, like Well, at Shopify, we use Git for version control and GitHub for storing our repositories. That type of information doesn't tell you very much about the level of trust. However, I'd also talk about our deployment. And so, for example, at Shopify, we don't have a quality assurance team. We adopt the philosophy that it's your code and your responsibility. Deploying code is more of it's a partnership between you and your reviewer. And both you and the person reviewing your code are equally responsible for your code. And then on top of that, you are the last human to see your code before it's deployed. So at Shopify, we have millions of merchants. And so whenever it's quite a thing to be pushing your code, your changes to that number of people. So that's one kind of indication of the level of trust you could pull from this type of question. I'd also speak to the fact that said, there's lots of systems in place to protect you from breaking Shopify and lots of people who can support you if something does go wrong, for example. So even though this is a technical question, you can get some understanding about what level of trust exists. We could be very different where you have to you make a change, you pass it up the chain, and it keeps going progressively up until it eventually gets deployed. But that's not the case. All right. So with this question, you may need to dig a little deeper with follow-up questions, but that gives you a sense. So what we're going to do now is I want you to take a second. In the doc that I shared, I want you to write additional questions that you think could help provide you insight into whether or not there's a high level of trust at an organization. So it doesn't have to be Shopify, just something very general. So I see. Yeah, so feel free, jump in. You should be able to edit the document, and I'll give you a few minutes to write some questions. And it's always potentially a little challenging having a lot of people editing a single Google Doc.
No, I think we're managing it well. Look at all these wonderful questions coming through.
And feel free to, if you have additional questions, like if something's confusing, you can ask in the chat, or you can unmute too. Feel free to speak up.
Really good questions coming in.
There's just some hard ones too. There's some good ones.
Some very timely ones. I'm seeing around questions specifically around the summer of 2020. That's good.
All right. So what I'm going to do, because I see some of you jumping around, which is fantastic. But what I'm going to do is each question, I'll give you a few moments to add new questions. So don't feel you have to get everything down right now. Oh, okay. I guess, Nicole, I don't know if, did you join a little bit late by chance? I'm wondering if you don't see the chat, if you joined at
Yes.
times.
Sorry, I just joined a little bit late, so it'd be great if you start and
Awesome.
if anyone
Not
else
to call
joined
you
late
out
as
for
well.
being late.
Oh, no worries.
But there it is again. I was just curious to know. I know Google Docs is that way. If you come in at a different time, you don't see the history. So I haven't worked with
Perfect. Thank you so much.
For sure. All right. So this is awesome. So that's the question. What is the process of writing and deploying code? And the answer I would give, or potentially a dev manager at Shopify might give. So let's move on to the next one. So yeah, an inclusive environment. So thinking, okay, from a developer's perspective, what does an inclusive environment entail? And then what kind of technical questions could you ask that would give you some insight into that? So the one I came up with was, how are incidents handled at your organization? And I actually saw in the chat earlier on talking about company culture and also blameless and so on, which is interesting. So this is a good one if you want to think about, okay, blameless culture, so how are incidents handled at an organization? Because that's obviously very stressful potentially. And so how would I handle this? How would we handle this at Shopify? So one of the things at Shopify we want our developers to ship boldly. And what that means is we don't want people being hesitant. And we also want to remove bottlenecks so that people aren't waiting, so we can keep moving quickly. If we had an environment where you were blamed for incidents, then what would happen is our devs would become tentative and would undermine that desire to have our devs ship boldly. So one of the things that happens at Shopify when an incident occurs, people immediately work together to resolve the issue and restore service. That's the first priority. Let's get service running again. And so anyone who has knowledge in a given space where the problem's occurring jumps in to help fix it. Then the problem is seen as a failure of our systems. It's not the failure of a person. If this problem was able to happen, it means that something was wrong with our processes and our systems. And so the focus is then on how do we prevent this from happening again? You'll see in the bullet points I'm sharing the word anti-fragility. It's a concept we talk about at Shopify a lot. It's just that if something's fragile, it breaks and gets weaker. So there's no real opposite to that. And so this is the term anti-fragility, is when something breaks or fails, it becomes stronger afterwards. And that's very much the way we see incidents at Shopify, is when something breaks, what comes out of that is a better version of what was there previously. So that's a piece. That's how we would address the incidents. And that would also tell you, if you're in an environment where it's all about pointing fingers, you can extrapolate to the broader culture of an organization if that's the situation from this one small example. So down below, I've listed, so I want to go back to the document and start answering questions. I gave you a couple other prompts that, for example, at Shopify, so I've listed a couple other aspects of Shopify that would suggest that we have an inclusive culture. For example, pair programming. We often pair together and believe that better code results when people work together. We also have millions of merchants on our platform, and in order to meet their diverse needs, it's important that our workforce diversity matches the diversity of our merchants. So what I'd like you to do now is just go back to the document, and I'll give you another minute or so to write some questions that might help you determine whether an organization is inclusive or not. I know we've already got a bunch of questions, so which is great. And being mindful of time, we'll just give you a minute, and then we'll move to the last one. And then we're pretty close to done, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can I say something?
For sure.
Hi. So in the meantime, we were asking question. Can I just ask you too about like how did you first start at Shopify? Like your journey when you first started, and like about your onboarding, applying process and stuff like that. If you don't mind sharing, thank you.
Helen, do you want to? Because while people are writing, we have
Yeah,
a little bit of time. You can
absolutely.
start.
Absolutely. Full disclosure, as I mentioned at the start, I'm not a technical person. I'm on the merchant success team, but I've been in and around tech for I think 13 years now. So my Shopify journey, I'm still relatively new to Shopify. I think I'm about 7 months in. I've always been really passionate about solving hard problems with smart people, and started having some conversations with my now VP around a specific difficult problem that I had in another role, and just sought out his mentorship and feedback. And from that, I started to build a relationship. And when the right opportunity came up, I applied through the system, and that is pretty much how I came to be at Shopify. How about you, Kyle?
Yeah, so I used to teach. I taught for about 20 years, chemistry and physics, in a bunch of different spots. I'm based in Ottawa, but I taught in Toronto and Tanzania and Peru. And then a big piece was I kind of wondered if I could do something like this. And I always kind of wondered if I could do something other than teaching. There was an opportunity at Shopify in a kind of a teaching role to work with new hires and developers. And so I kind of put my name in and managed to secure a position. And I've been here now for 4.5 years. So yeah, but it was definitely a lot of, oh my goodness, do I belong here kind of feeling when I first arrived, because I really felt out of place at times. And I don't know if you feel that at all, Helen, but it's really great.
Yeah. I mean, the terminology imposter syndrome is very real, because there's lots of really smart people around.
Yeah. Which is another reason you want to have that good culture, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right. So let's move to the last one. I want to make sure we leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So this is the last one. How would you determine, this one maybe is a little bit more straightforward, if an organization is going to provide you with good opportunities to solve difficult and high impact technical challenges? And so thinking from a Shopify perspective, what would be a good question? Shopify has really grown. It's a big organization now. There's about 12,000 people at Shopify. So how does your organization remain agile and respond to change would be a good question to ask, and to kind of get at this piece. So one of the challenges with companies as they get large is they slow down. And so at Shopify, one way we try to keep moving quickly is to take really big projects and goals and break them into small little pieces. And so that unit of work at Shopify is the project, and those teams are very small. We often say they're 2 pizza-sized teams. So that would be anywhere from 4 to 6 people. And working in such a small team on a project, you become agile and you have a lot of ownership as well. And yeah, so you can drive the direction and all those kind of things. We also try and do more horizontal scaling, meaning leveraging everyone's expertise rather than just this vertical kind of idea where decisions come top down. And there's also opportunities for you to experiment with things. We have a hack days where you stop working on what you're normally working on for 3 days, and then you have the opportunity to test ideas that you might be interested in. So all these kind of ways are ways for us to remain agile and to test ideas. And so let's take, just looking at our document, we've got a few questions here for this one, but let me give you another minute. Feel free to add questions anywhere in the doc, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A. We should have about 5 minutes for that.
Perfect. I might speak just a little bit more to what Hack Days is.
Please.
As while people are typing, because Hack Days is something that I love. And as I mentioned, I'm not a technical person, but I enjoy very much working and learning from very technical people, whether it's, UX to dev to you name it, and in between. So recently there was a Hack Days, and it was it was the best Hack Days team that I'd been on. And it was team members from all over the world working a whole range of different time zones, trying to solve the same problem. But because we all from different areas, different departments, different schools of thought, it meant that we got to look at the problem in different ways and explore the problem in a way that I hadn't thought of. And it's just really just a great chance to like get to work with different people. It's something I really enjoy. Kyle, did you do the recent Hack Days?
I didn't this time. I was facilitating at the time, so I ended up missing it. But I love Hack Days as well. It's such a nice opportunity to learn about other parts of the org, connect with other people, and like you said, these great problems that you can kind of be working through with, smart people. All right, why don't we? I'll stop my screen share, and we have 4 minutes left. If there's any questions, you can feel free to come off mute and ask yourself or type them in the chat. You can
ask away. What do you want to know?
I'm very curious, Kyle, about your job history, because it says in your profile that you taught in Peru and in so many places in the world. So how come you landed in Shopify? And how was the transition like for you?
It was one of those things that was quite so many things are timing and luck. And I was working at a school in Ottawa that we had just started, and one of the big pieces of that school was entrepreneurship. And so I was looking into entrepreneurship, and then I stumbled across Shopify, and then I realized, it's an Ottawa-based company. And at the time, Shopify was very Ottawa-based. And I kind of was, like I mentioned previously, I've always kind of wondered if I could do other things, even though that maybe is making it sound belittling my previous experience, because that's not it. But it's I was curious to see if I could try something outside of education and teaching, and so I put my name in.
Would you say you had to take a leap of faith?
Completely, because to be honest, I found it extremely challenging, because one thing that I really had took a sense of something that was really part of who I was my craft, and which was chemistry and physics. And then I came to Shopify, and I don't do any chemistry here, and so I felt this real loss of identity, and I questioned the value I was bringing, and so that was really, really tough for me. And but over time, being surrounded by good people and supportive people, and it made a big difference. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
There's a question in the chat pop up about what are some of the questions to see how the work-life balance is.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think it would be great to leverage the expertise in this room as well. So feel free to add that to the doc as well, and then people can start adding questions to it as well. But that's a good one.
I think I would ask questions around what happens if a project deadline is not met.
Totally. It's a great one. And I know then you could kind of get at things that, like, okay, what's most important? Is the most important thing about shipping something, or do you want to make sure that what you ship delights your merchants or your users?
Yeah, that's a good answer in there too. Curious about the ERG. Well, I can take that one. So the employee resource group, there's a number of them at Shopify. I'm personally very involved with OUT, which is the LGBTQ+, sorry, my brain, the Alphabet Mafia, that's us. We do lots of activities because, as Kyle said, it's about reflecting the diversity of our merchants in our workplace. So there's all sorts of supportive groups. The Audi one is actually the largest ERG at Shopify, fun fact. We do lots of activities and build community and build safe spaces. And I think that's something that really drew me to Shopify and really fills my heart and my days with a lot of happiness. So we're at time, but I'm just wondering if there's one quick question. Feel free to shoot it out.
I just did have a quick question, actually. One of the reasons actually why I'm interested in Shopify is kind of how they work around the world and how there's so many people, and I think that that's really cool. How have you guys found the I guess how you found it is like what it's like to work with so many people around the world on different time zones, maybe working at different times and different cultures? Like, how have you found that to contribute to the success of Shopify?
I can speak first if you want, Helen. There's definitely so we're all digital by default now, so we don't have an office. So as you can imagine, there is challenges with getting to really know people beyond kind of a work level. So that's a piece Shopify is still trying to figure out, and the opportunity is really fantastic. Looking at who we have joining that potentially couldn't have joined previously. Like I know, as I mentioned, I do a lot of onboarding, so I've had people from all the continents, well, except Antarctica, I guess, but join, which is really neat. And those, I don't think we wouldn't see that previously, because having people move to Ottawa, for example, is not, a lot of people just can't do it. And so it just creates a much richer environment when you have that kind of diversity in the organization, for sure. Helen's that been your experience too?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I'm just thinking about some people that I work with on a regular basis, the multiple languages as well, and experiences and stories and perspectives they bring. That changes the way we interact with our merchants, and that changes what we build for our merchants. And this richness, this cultural richness of our teams just is so valuable. So there's that. Then the other piece as well is Destination 90. If you haven't heard about that, quickly Google that. Shopify allows you to take the 3 months where you can work pretty much anywhere abroad. So there's lots of people, like I just know someone who's just come back from Mexico and is I think she's out of the Toronto team. So you get the chance to work with different people in different environments. And all of that is just really great. It's really great.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, because I'm in my undergrad, so I'm in a co-op program, so I've onboarded at 3 companies now during COVID, and I have really seen the impacts of whether or not there is a culture online, and they do try to kind of keep people together, because sometimes it can be really isolating if the company doesn't do all these things. So it's great to hear that Shopify does do that to keep everyone connected when they're like so global.
Yeah, there's lots of things coming down the line. Watch this space, but in-person meetings and activities are starting to happen again when it's safe and when it's appropriate, but lots of things happening. Now it's 3:33, Kyle. I'm thinking we might have to unfortunately wrap up, but you don't want to talk about the takeaway resource real quickly? The doc?
Other than you can use it as you please and feel free to add to it. I guess that's about all I have to say about it. But yeah, feel free to continue building it and sharing it as you see fit. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. We hope to see you all soon at Shopify.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you so much.